My name is Raymond. I am 67 years old. I am a retired salesman living in Cleveland, Ohio, where I have spent most of my adult life. Today I want to tell you something that still weighs heavy on my heart. Something that tore me to pieces on a regular Friday when I came home early wanting to surprise my wife and ended up seeing the scene that ripped 35 years of marriage away in a single blow. If you are listening and have gone through the pain of betrayal, or know someone living through something similar, please leave a like to keep this old man company. I just want to unburden my soul. Subscribe to the channel William's Revenge Stories so you do not miss my memories, my stumbles, and my lessons. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is there. I always like to know who is on the other side listening to this stubborn old man. Although I live in Cleveland now, I was born far away from here. In a small town in rural Kentucky, a place where the smell of homemade biscuits mixed with the smoke of wood stoves early in the morning. My dad, Mr. Lawrence, was a merchant, a serious man of firm words. He always said, "Son, a man's word is worth more than any signature." I grew up watching him leave before dawn and come back when it was already dark, but I never heard an argument between him and my mom over trust. They were from the old school, the kind who swore love to each other and kept it without making a fuss. I was the youngest of 4 brothers. We did not have a car, we did not have luxuries, but we had enough to live peacefully. My mom made meatloaf so delicious it perfumed the whole house. On Sundays after church, we ate roast beef, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Then we went out to the street to play until the night caught up with us. We were happy without knowing it. I ran as if I had wings, skinny but fast, always with scraped knees. At 14, I got my first job at a hardware store downtown. The owner, Mr. Harris, was strict but fair. He taught me the value of honest work. I organized screws, moved boxes, and learned to deal with people. I earned very little, but my mom saved that money as if it were gold. She put it in an old tin can, saying it would be for when I needed it. In the end, she used it to buy my older sister's wedding dress, and I never complained because I knew it was for a good cause. It was at a county fair where I met the woman I thought would be the love of my life, Lucy. She had dark brown eyes and a smile that lit up the air. She wore a colorful skirt that moved with the music. I stood there looking at her like a fool until my brother gave me a shove and told me to go talk to her. I gathered my courage. I asked her to dance, and she said yes. From that moment I felt I had the path I wanted to follow right in front of me. We dated for several years. I walked up to her house every afternoon, even though it was up a hill that left me breathless. We sat on the porch, drinking sweet tea and talking about life. Lucy dreamed of having her own house, having children, growing old with me. I promised her I would work hard to give her all that, and I meant it. We got married in the same church where we met. My dad, although dry, shook my hand with pride. My mom cried through the whole ceremony. Lucy looked beautiful in a simple dress. We did not have a fancy honeymoon, but we were happy. Shortly after we moved to Cleveland, where I got a better job selling appliances. With a lot of effort and patience, we managed to buy our own house. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, simple but ours. We cried with joy when we received the keys. We had 2 children, Matt, who was serious and responsible, and Carrie, who was talkative and full of energy. The years passed between work, laughter, and responsibilities. Lucy left her job to take care of the house and the kids. I worked a lot, but I always looked for a moment to take them to the park, fly kites, or go fishing at the river. I thought life was already solved, that our love was strong, firm, capable of withstanding anything. But the children grew up, each took their own path, and the house became empty again, just for Lucy and me. It was then, without me realizing it, that the first signs began to appear. Signs that I see clearly now, but at that moment I ignored like a trusting fool. I did not know that what was coming was going to break me completely. As time went on, Lucy started to change in ways I did not understand. At first they were small details that did not seem important. She dressed up more than usual, wore clothes she never had before, dyed her hair more frequently, and put on a new perfume I did not recognize. I saw it as something good, thinking maybe she was trying to feel better about herself. But now I know those were the first warnings that something was shifting in her heart. She also started going out more often. She told me she was going with some friends, or that she was helping a knitting group at church, or going for a walk in the park. I trusted her like an idiot. I told her it was good she did not stay locked up, that she should look for distractions. I never imagined those outings were not what she said. It was around that time that a young man named Dave moved in next door. He was in his 30s, single, thin, always with his computer in hand. He said he worked from home fixing systems and websites. I did not fully understand, but I liked him. He was polite, always greeted us. He even helped me a couple of times when I needed to move something heavy. I never suspected anything. To me, he was just a good neighbor, but Lucy started mentioning him more and more. She told me Dave did not know how to cook well, and that she had taken him a plate of food, or that he had asked for help choosing a washing machine, or that he had stopped by to chat about something light. All that seemed like normal things between neighbors. I saw no malice in either of them. It never crossed my mind that a disaster could be starting right there. Over time, Lucy began to get irritated with me. Any comment of mine bothered her. If I came home tired from work and told her the food was good, she rolled her eyes. If I wanted to watch a movie with her, she said she was tired. If I tried to tell her something, she responded only with, "Uh-huh," as if I were in her way. I tried to understand her. I told her we could go out more, that we could do things together. But every attempt of mine crashed against an invisible wall. Worse yet, in the intimate department, she also started to change. Before, even though years had passed, there was still affection between us. But suddenly she was always tired, or had a headache, or used any excuse. I did not insist, but deep down it hurt. I felt something was detaching between us, but I did not know what. One day I came back earlier than usual because my boss gave me the afternoon off. When I entered, the house was silent. I called Lucy and she did not answer. I went up the stairs without noise and found her in the bedroom, sitting on the bed looking at her cell phone. When she saw me, she jumped a little, as if she had been caught stealing something. She put away the phone fast, too fast. I asked her if she was okay, and she said yes, that she was just bored. But that reaction left a hole in my chest. Something did not add up. Weeks went by like that. I tried not to think badly, but the signs were already there. One day, while she was showering, her cell phone vibrated on the kitchen table. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. The name that appeared on the screen was Dave. My heart stopped. I did not answer, I did not touch the phone, I did not do anything. I just watched it until it stopped ringing. When Lucy came out of the bathroom, I asked her if anyone had called. She said no. She lied with an ease that gave me chills. After that day, I started seeing things I had ignored before. Lucy went out more than ever, and always took hours to come back. I sent her messages, and she took a long time to reply or answered with obvious lies. I knew deep down that something was not right, but I was afraid to face the truth. Afraid because a part of me already knew what was happening and did not want to accept it. The straw that broke the camel's back was a random afternoon. I was putting clothes away in our closet and I saw a folded paper between Lucy's blouses. I took it without thinking. It was a short note written in a man's handwriting. Today was special. Thanks for everything. From D. I felt the world falling on top of me. My legs trembled. I had to sit on the edge of the bed so as not to faint. That handwriting was not mine. That initial was not mine. I knew perfectly well who it was from. But I said nothing. I had no strength. I put the note back where it was and went down to the living room. I sat there for hours without watching television, without understanding anything, only listening to the sound of my own heart breaking piece by piece. That night I realized I could no longer go on living without knowing the full truth. If Lucy was betraying me, I had to see it with my own eyes. I needed proof. I needed to close this chapter once and for all. I had to discover it myself, even if it destroyed me forever. After finding that hidden note among Lucy's clothes, I spent entire nights unable to sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about every detail I had ignored before. Every outing of hers, every lie, every strange gesture became a clear signal, as if everything were illuminated by a lamp I did not want to turn on. But now there was no turning back. I had to know the truth. I could not go on living with this doubt that was consuming me from the inside. So I made a decision. I was going to set a trap, something that would not raise suspicions. I wanted to see her with my own eyes, discover what was really happening. I was not looking for a fight or punches or screams. I just wanted the truth. Because when one faces a betrayal, what hurts the most is not the cheating but the everyday lying. That lie that gets under the skin that one believes without realizing it. I spent days acting as if nothing was wrong. I talked to Lucy as always, greeted her. The same did my routines. Went to work at the same time, came back at the same time. Everything normal. Inside, I was torn to pieces, but on the outside, I had to look calm so as not to raise suspicion. I could not ruin my own plan. One night during dinner, I dropped the first part of my trap. I told Lucy that a quick trip to Chicago had come up, that I had to go close an important deal. She looked up, and for a second I thought I saw a strange shine in her eyes. She asked me how many days I would be away. I pretended to think and told her I would return on Saturday night. She nodded as if it were nothing, but I noticed a small curve on her mouth like a hidden smile. That smile made me nauseous. The next day I packed my things as if I were going to travel. I put clothes in a suitcase, put on my good shirt, and even printed some papers so it looked like I was carrying work documents. Lucy was strangely calm while I got everything ready. She gave me a cold kiss before I left, and I could only feel rage and sadness mixed together. I left the house, started the car, and went around the block. As soon as I was out of her sight, I parked the car several blocks away. I walked back through a dirt path that led to the back of the houses. I hid behind some old bushes from where I could perfectly see the entrance of my house, and also the door of Dave's house. My heart was beating so fast I feared even the birds could hear it. I waited. 10 minutes, 15, half an hour, nothing. I started to think maybe I was wrong, that maybe Lucy would do nothing that day. But then, as if God wanted to show me the truth once and for all, the door of my house opened. It was Lucy. She looked both ways like someone checking that no one is watching. She walked out with a quick step and went straight to Dave's house. My stomach churned. She rang the doorbell. He opened. He smiled at her and she went in. The door closed behind both of them. I felt like I ran out of air. My legs trembled. I could not move. I stayed frozen behind those bushes like a man without a soul. I knew deep down that this moment would arrive, but a part of me still had the hope of being wrong. And there was the proof. There was no doubt. There were no excuses. There was no different interpretation. My wife, the woman with whom I shared almost my entire life, was entering another man's house as soon as she thought I had left the city. I stared at that closed door without blinking. I do not know how much time passed. It could have been half an hour or a minute. Everything in my head was noise. The sound of my heavy breathing, the accelerated heartbeat, and a pain so deep it seemed like a hole swallowing me whole. But I could not stay there. I needed to see more. I needed that when the moment came, no one could tell me I was exaggerating. I walked away trembling and went to a cafe downtown. I ordered a coffee that I did not even feel when drinking. I watched the clock every 5 minutes. I could barely think. I only felt a mixture of rage, fear, sadness, and shame. Yes, shame. Because when one is betrayed, even if it is not one's fault, something in the heart feels like you have been made a fool of. At 3 in the afternoon, I decided to go back to the house. It was time. If they were together, I would find them. I was going to enter by surprise, like someone returning from a trip earlier than planned. I no longer cared what I was going to see. I needed to close this wound with the complete truth. I arrived slowly without making noise. I opened the door with my keys. The house was completely silent, but a strange, thick silence. That silence one recognizes as a sign that something is wrong. I went up the stairs, and then I heard it. Moans. Loud moans. Moans coming directly from my bedroom. My heart broke in that instant, and yet I kept going up. I climbed the stairs as if every step cut me inside. The moans were clearer, louder, unmistakable. They were Lucy's. I recognized her voice perfectly, but I had never heard her like that. That way of moaning was not for me. It never was. I felt a mixture of rage and a pain so deep I almost doubled over right there. My hands were sweating, my throat was closed, and my heart pounded as if it wanted to burst out of my chest. I reached the hallway, and the sounds came directly from our room, the same one where we slept together for more than 30 years, where we raised our children, where we shared dreams and hopes. The door was locked. Locked. In my own house. In my own bedroom. Lucy had never locked that door. Not even when the kids were little. And now it was locked. While she moaned. I pounded the door with my fist with all the strength I had. Lucy, open this right now. The moans cut off abruptly. A thick, uncomfortable, dirty silence fell. I heard movements, fast, clumsy steps. Then her trembling voice. Ray, wait, I am cleaning the room. That lie was like a slap in the face. Cleaning the room? With the door locked? And with moans that could be heard from the hallway? Did she think I was an idiot? I pounded again harder. Open the door now, Lucy. She did not open. She kept saying to wait to calm down, inventing excuses that made no sense. That was when I lost control. I stepped back a couple of steps and threw myself against the door with my shoulder. The wood cracked. I hit it again. Another blow. A third. And on the fourth blow the lock flew off and the door burst open. The image I saw inside remained engraved in my mind like an eternal scar. The bed was a mess, the sheets thrown on the floor, the clothes scattered. Lucy was standing in the middle of the room in a robe put on wrong, her hair messy, her face red. I did not need any explanation. Everything was clearer than water. She stuttered. She said she was preparing a surprise, that I had ruined everything. But nothing made sense anymore. My gaze scanned the room looking for the other one, the intruder, the coward. "Where is he?" I asked with a voice so low it scared me to hear myself. "Who?" Lucy replied, trembling. But I was not stupid. I knew there was someone else there. I opened the closet. Nothing. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I looked behind the curtains. No one. Lucy looked at me with a mixture of fear and desperation, as if she still had hope I would not find him. But I knew every corner of that house. I was missing the last place. I bent down and lifted the quilt that hung at the edge of the bed. There was Dave curled up like a cornered animal in his boxers, sweating cold with a face white from fright. When our eyes met, I felt an explosion of rage inside me. He stayed paralyzed, unable to move. "Get out of there," I told him, with a voice broken by fury. He did not move. "I told you to get out of there," I screamed. Dave started crawling, trembling, trying to stand up. When he came out, he was so nervous he almost fell. "Ray, please, can I explain?" he stammered. "Explain what?" I replied, taking a step toward him. "What are you doing under my bed? What are you doing in my house? What are you doing with my wife?" He backed away with fear. For a moment I felt an impulse to hit him, to break his face, to take out at least a part of the pain I was feeling. But I looked at him well and realized he was not worth even a punch from me. He was a coward hiding under a bed with no dignity. "Take your clothes and get out," I said. Dave ran to get dressed as best as he could, tripping over his own feet. Lucy stood there without moving a finger, without saying a word. When he finished putting on his shirt, he opened his mouth again. "Ray, I am sorry I—" "Shut up," I told him, pointing to the door. "Get out before I change my mind." And he left, running down the stairs, almost falling. I heard the front door slam as he left. Then I was left alone with Lucy. The room smelled of someone else's sweat, of betrayal, of lies. Lucy stood there, eyes full of tears, but not of repentance. They were tears of fear, of being discovered. I took a deep breath, feeling a pain that felt like a knife stuck in my chest. "How long?" I asked without looking at her. Lucy did not answer. "I am asking you, how long?" I yelled. She jumped and finally said with a broken voice, 2 years, Ray, 2 years. 2 years. 200 weekends, more than 700 days. While I worked, while I trusted her, while I gave her my whole life. And everything collapsed at once. When Lucy said 2 years, I felt as if someone had hit me directly in the soul. 2 years of lies. 2 years of fake hugs. 2 years of sleeping with me while thinking of another. I had a hard time processing it. I held onto the edge of the bed so as not to fall. I looked at her intently and asked the only thing my heart wanted to understand. "Why, Lucy? What did I do so wrong?" She lowered her gaze. She took a deep breath and said something that still puts a lump in my throat. "You did nothing wrong, Ray. That is the problem. You did nothing. You were always busy, always working, always tired." I felt lonely. Dave listened to me. He made me feel alive. Those words were worse than any blow. I, who worked my whole life to give her stability so that she lacked nothing, was now the reason she claimed to have gone with another. I stood there looking at her with a pain so deep I could not even speak for a few seconds. I did not understand how she could say that after everything we did together. "He made you feel alive?" I repeated with a broken voice. "And what was I to you? A piece of furniture? A nuisance? A paycheck?" Lucy started crying harder, but it did not move me anymore. Not after what I had seen. Not after hearing her justify something unjustifiable. I got up and walked toward the door. I felt the room had become a dirty place, a stained space. I could no longer call mine. "I do not want to hear you anymore," I told her. "Do not invent excuses. Do not lie to me anymore. I have had enough." I went down to the living room without looking back. I sat on the armchair, trembling, trying to decide what to do. The only thing I knew was that my life had changed forever. A few minutes later, Lucy came down the stairs slowly. Her face was swollen. She wanted to approach me, but I raised my hand. "Do not touch me," I said. "Do not ever touch me again." She stood in the middle of the living room, not knowing what to do. "Ray, we can talk, please," she pleaded. "We can fix this." "Fix what?" I replied, laughing with bitterness. "Fix 2 years of betrayal? Fix that you got involved with a man who lives a few steps from our house? Fix that I heard you moaning for him in our bed? No, Lucy, there is nothing to fix." She covered her face with her hands and started crying harder. But she was not crying for me. She was crying because she had been caught. She was crying because her comfortable life was about to end. At that moment I took my cell phone and dialed the number of Matt, my oldest son. I tried to keep my voice as firm as possible. "Son, I need you to come to Cleveland. It is urgent." He understood by my tone that something serious was happening. He told me he was leaving from the city immediately. I hung up and remained seated without moving. I felt a tiredness. I had never felt a weight crushing my chest. Lucy took a few steps closer, but I stood up. "Please, Ray, give me a chance," she insisted. "No," I said with a calm that surprised me. "There is nothing between us anymore. This is over." The rest of the day was a silent hell. Me sitting in the living room, her in the kitchen, each in our own world. When Matt arrived in the afternoon and I told him everything, I saw him break. It was the first time since he was a child that I saw my son cry. He hugged his mother, but then pulled away from her with sadness. "Mom, how could you?" he asked. Lucy did not answer. She just cried. My daughter Carrie, too. She arrived later with my grandkids. When she learned the truth, she could not even look her in the eyes. That night I sent Lucy to sleep in the guest room. I could not see her. I could not be in the same bed she had stained with another man. I slept in our room, although the smell of betrayal was still there. I closed my eyes, but did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling until dawn. On Monday morning I did what I had to do. I went to a lawyer recommended by a colleague. A serious man in a gray suit attended me. I told him the story without omitting anything. He took notes and at the end said, "Raymond, you have every right to file for divorce on grounds of adultery. Is the house in your name?" "Yes," I replied. "Then do not worry. We are going to make sure you keep what is yours." I returned home with papers in hand, determined to start the process. Lucy was at the table with a cold coffee. When she saw me enter, she wanted to speak, but I walked past her. I went up to the room, started separating my things, and came down with 2 full suitcases. When Lucy saw me come down, she ran toward me. "What are you doing, Ray?" "I am leaving," I told her without looking at her. "I will stay with Matt for a few days while I find where to live. You can stay here until the divorce goes through. Afterward, you will have to leave." She opened her mouth, but I did not let her speak. "If you want to say something, say it to my lawyer. His number is on the table." And without further ado, I left the house that was once my home. I left the house with suitcases in hand, without looking back. I felt a huge hole in my chest, as if something that cannot be replaced had been ripped out. I put the suitcases in the car and drove toward my son Matt's place. It was a 5-hour drive that seemed eternal. I cried so much I had to pull over twice because my vision blurred. I cried for what was lost, for the years that would not return, for the broken trust, and for the shame of having been deceived so close to my own door. When I finally arrived at Matt's apartment, he received me with a firm hug, almost as if he wanted to hold me up so I would not crumble. His wife Camila had prepared a special meal to cheer me up, but I could barely eat a few bites. Everything tasted like ash to me, as if nothing had flavor or meaning. That first night I slept in the guest room they used for visits. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling without blinking, reliving the scene of Lucy and Dave. I closed my eyes and heard the moans again. I opened my eyes and saw them together. It was a night of torture, one of many that came after. In the following days, Matt did his best to keep me occupied. He took me for walks in the park, invited me to breakfast, sat with me to watch TV, even though I paid no attention to anything. Carrie also called me every day, worried, asking how I was. My cell phone, on the other hand, did not stop ringing with calls from Lucy. 50, maybe more. Long messages begging, saying she loved me, that she had made a mistake, that she wanted to fix everything. I blocked her without thinking twice. I did not want to hear more lies. After 2 weeks living with my son, I decided I could not stay there forever. I did not want to be a burden. I started looking for a small place to rent. I found a simple little apartment in a quiet neighborhood with 1 bedroom, a living room, and a kitchenette. It was not pretty, nor big, nor cheerful, but it was a place where I could be alone without getting in anyone's way. I signed the contract, paid the rent, and moved in with my suitcases. Entering that empty place was like entering a different world, a cold world. I put my few things in the drawers and sat on the bed in silence. That silence became my companion, too big, too hard. The days felt eternal. I got up with no motivation. I made coffee just to feel a little warmth. I ate the same thing almost daily because I had no energy to cook. In the afternoon I went out for a walk, but upon returning the apartment was just as silent. I no longer had anyone to ask me how my day was, no one waiting for me, no one to share a plate of food with. The divorce process moved forward. My lawyer kept me informed. He told me Lucy tried to fight for half the things that she wanted alimony, that she was doing everything possible not to come out losing. But the law was on my side. She had committed adultery. There was not much she could do. And although that was winning legally, I felt defeated inside. One day while I was watching TV without paying attention, the doorbell of my apartment rang. I got up thinking it would be Matt or a neighbor. When I opened the door, I lost my breath. It was Lucy. She was thinner with messy hair and swollen eyes. She wore loose clothes as if she had not slept in several days. "Ray, please, I need to talk to you," she said with a broken voice. "I have nothing to talk to you about," I replied, trying to close the door. But she put her hand to stop it. "Please, just 5 minutes, I beg you." Against my will, I let her in. She sat on the edge of the armchair, her hands trembling. I remained standing, arms crossed, waiting. "I broke up with Dave," she said, without looking at me. "The same day you discovered us. I never spoke to him again. He moved. He sold the house and left. I am alone, Ray, completely alone. I lost my children, I lost my grandkids, I lost you." I remained silent. I felt no pity nor rage, just a huge void. "I regret it," she continued, crying. "I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I do not know what to do. Do you think that changes anything?" I told her with a cold voice. "You betrayed me for 2 years. 2 years, Lucy. You kissed me after kissing him. You slept with me after being with him. And now you come to talk to me about regret." She sobbed, but could not move me even a bit. Not an inch of her pain. "Get out, Lucy. Do not come back," I told her. She got up trembling, walked toward the door, and before leaving turned around. "I loved you, Ray, believe it or not." I looked directly at her. "If that was love, then I do not even want to imagine your indifference." I closed the door behind her and let myself fall to the floor, crying once more. But I was no longer crying for her. I was crying for myself, for what life had snatched from me. The months that followed that visit from Lucy were the heaviest of my life. I continued living in that small apartment in the city, trying to get used to a routine I had not asked for. I got up early, made coffee, opened the window to let in the fresh air, and then stayed sitting for a good while watching the city wake up. Sometimes I felt like crying for no reason. Other times I stayed completely empty, as if I had been turned off inside. The divorce came through after several weeks. My lawyer notified me that the judge had ruled everything in my favor. The house in Cleveland remained mine, and also most of the assets. Lucy would have to look for a new place to live. When I received the news, I thought I would feel victorious, relieved. But no, the only thing I felt was a bigger hole. It was as if the judge's signature had put the last nail in the coffin of everything I had been for 35 years. Even so, I kept going. I had no other option. I was not going to stay lying in bed waiting for life to pick me up. Life does not pick anyone up. One has to stand up alone. I started walking more often. Near my apartment there was a simple little park with old benches and trees that gave good shade. I went every morning with a thermos full of black coffee. I sat to watch people pass by. Ladies walking dogs, men doing stretches as if they were 20 years younger, kids running as if the ground did not burn. That little park became my refuge. Right there I saw several people who became familiar faces. A lady who sold bread who always gave me an extra roll because you remind me of my dad, Mr. Ray. A man with white hair who walked his old dog and always greeted me with a, "How are you this morning?" And although it might not seem like much, those little greetings, that routine, helped me feel that I still belonged somewhere. One day, while doing my shopping at a nearby supermarket, something happened that changed my route completely. I was grabbing some bags of beans when a woman accidentally bumped her basket against mine. The basket fell and fruits rolled everywhere. I got nervous apologizing, trying to help her gather everything. The woman smiled in such a kind way that it calmed me. "Do not worry, these things happen," she said. She had short hair, gray in a pretty way, and calm eyes that gave peace. Her name was Martha. She told me she had been a widow for 3 years, that she lived alone and came to that supermarket every week. We stayed talking for a while there, between the pasta aisle and the canned goods. The conversation was so natural, it surprised me. There was no pressure, no nerves, no that ugly sensation in the stomach I had every time I remembered Lucy. With Martha, everything was simple. When we left the supermarket, we discovered she lived only a few blocks from my apartment. We walked together a stretch, and when we arrived in front of her building, she said goodbye, with a smile that for the first time in months made me feel something similar to calm. The following days, we started bumping into each other more often. Sometimes at the supermarket, sometimes at the bakery, other times at the little park. Every meeting was a pleasant chat. Martha was calm, spoke slowly, listened more than she spoke, and had a special way of seeing the pretty things in life, like a fresh flower or a reddish sunset. I, who had lived months in a dark well, began to feel a small light, a timid light, but there it was. Over time, they were no longer chance meetings. We started walking together in the mornings. She carried a bottle of water, I my thermos of coffee. We talked while doing laps around the park. One day she invited me to try the homemade bread she made on Saturdays. Another day she showed me photos of her children and grandchildren. There were no pressures, there were no expectations, just sincere company. On one of those walks, I finally dared to invite her to have a real coffee, not from the thermos. We went to a small coffee shop with the aroma of freshly baked sweet bread. We sat near the window and ordered coffee and a piece of cake. We talked for hours, and there at that wooden table I told her for the first time the complete story of what I had lived with Lucy and Dave. Martha did not interrupt me a single time, did not ask for gossip, did not make faces, did not criticize. She just listened, and when I finished she reached out her hand and took mine. "I am very sorry, Ray, but you still have life ahead. Do not give up," she told me with a soft voice. That gesture, so simple, was like a warm bandage on an open wound. Something inside me moved, as if for the first time in a long time my heart remembered how to beat without pain. After that coffee with Martha, something inside me began to change, even if just a little. It was not that from one day to the next the pain went away. No, that does not work like that. But for the first time since my life had split in two, I felt I was not completely sunk. It was as if that talk had moved a stone that had me stuck inside. Martha had that calm way of listening, that way of looking at you without judging, and when one is broken, one needs that more than any advice. We continued seeing each other in the park. Sometimes we walked fast, other times we just sat on a bench to talk about anything. She told me about her late husband, how hard her first years alone had been, how she felt the world was coming down on her when he died. Her words were not of pity, but of understanding, and that made me feel someone understood my pain without minimizing it. As weeks went by, Martha and I started going out a little more. One day we went to the movies to see an old film they played in special screenings. Another day she invited me to a small diner where they made Swiss enchiladas she loved. I accompanied her without rush, without expectations. It was not a romantic date, not yet. It was company. It was breathing without feeling my chest weighed so much. My children met her too. One afternoon I invited her to have coffee at Matt's house. He and Camila received her with affection. Matt, who has always been observant, looked at me with a smile that said more than 1,000 words. Later, when Martha left, he put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Dad, can you see the piece you were missing?" Carrie also met her days later. She was more direct. She took my hand and told me, "If that lady gives you tranquility, that is good, Dad. After what happened, you deserve something nice." Those words made me cry in silence later that night. Sometimes one needs their children to push them a little forward. But not everything was easy. There were days when my mind played tricks on me. If Martha took long to reply to a message, even if it was because she was busy or buying vegetables, my heart shrank. The dirty thought came, the old fear, the shadow of betrayal. I wondered if I was repeating the story, if I was trusting too much again. One afternoon my anxiety was so strong that when she finally replied, I ended up confessing everything to her. "Sorry, Martha, sometimes fear gets to me. It is not about you, it is what was left in me." She did not get upset, did not frown, nor question me. She just hugged me slowly. Ray, she said, wounds take time to close, but I will not fail you. I will show you with facts. And so it was Martha. She was a constant woman. She did not say one thing and do another. She did not disappear, did not hide, and that which for anyone seemed simple for me was like breathing clean air after a long time breathing dust. One afternoon she invited me to dinner at her apartment. She prepared pasta with homemade sauce and put on soft music. We ate calmly, without rush, laughing at simple things. She told me stories about her grandkids I told her about when Matt was little and lost a shoe in a river. The night was so quiet it seemed the world had stopped. When I was about to say goodbye, Martha came close, took my hands, and looked me straight in the eyes. Ray, she said with a tone serious and sweet at the same time, I know you are still carrying pain. I understand, I know betrayal marks you, that one remains suspicious, but I want you to know that with me you will not live that. I am a simple woman, Ray. I do not play with anyone. If you want to try something with me, it has to be with calm, with sincerity, and if you are not ready, that is also fine. We will continue being friends. I stayed silent a moment, feeling my heart tremble, not with fear, but with truth. Because for the first time in a long time, someone spoke to me head on, without beating around the bush, without lying. I breathed deep and told her, I want to try, Martha, but I need you to be patient with me. Sometimes I will get scared, sometimes I will mistrust, without reason. It is not because of you, it is because of what I lived. She smiled, that smile of hers that seemed to turn off any storm. I have all the patience in the world, Ray, she replied. There is no rush. And that was the start of something new, a slow beginning without the fire of youth, but with the calm of people who have lived much and do not need to disguise anything. It was not a soap opera love. It was an honest affection that grew step by step. From that moment I entered a different stage of my life, a stage where I was no longer alone, and where sadness began, little by little, to let go of my hand. The relationship with Martha advanced slowly, calmly, without pressures. It was just what I needed. The trust I had lost with Lucy left me marked, but Martha never got desperate with me. She always had a soft word, a calm smile, or a simple gesture that made me feel at peace. She never demanded anything. She never reproached my fears. She never rushed me. Her way of loving was calm, like a hug that does not squeeze but supports. Little by little I began opening spaces for her in my life. She taught me things I had never done. She taught me to cook more than the basics. She taught me to cut vegetables without leaving fingers in the way, to prepare tasty soups and even rice that did not stick. I told her, laughing, it was pure witchcraft, and she laughed the same, with that quiet laugh of hers that stayed in the air like a hug. She also taught me to take care of plants. She had a small garden on the roof of her building where she grew basil, mint, cherry tomatoes, and even some flowers I could not pronounce. She invited me to make one in my apartment too. I thought nothing would grow for me, but she helped me put pots, prepare the soil, and plant the first seeds. Every morning I went to check my plants as if they were little children, and little by little, seeing them grow gave me a peace I had not felt in a long time. Over time, the idea that someone could betray me again became less strong. Martha always spoke to me head on, told me where she was, told me her plans. She did not hide her. Cell phone had no secrets. Her way of living was so transparent that I myself began to relax. Trust, that word that seemed impossible after what I lived, was returning little by little. Lucy once in a while still tried to contact me. She sent messages on special dates, on Carrie's birthdays or the grandkids. Always the same tone. I am sorry I cannot sleep. I would like to talk. Can we fix it? But it moved nothing in me anymore. Neither anger nor sadness. Just indifference. It was as if her presence in my life had been left behind in a closed door I did not plan to open again. I did not let Martha know about those messages at first because I did not want to burden her with my past. But one day I decided to tell her. She listened calmly without getting upset. She just said, "It is normal she seeks to clear her conscience, Ray. But you are no longer there. You are here living another story." And she was right. Months passed, and Martha and I started spending more time together. We cooked, went for walks, went to the movies, drank coffee in the mornings. Sometimes we had dinner at my apartment, other times at hers. But we have never been people of great luxuries. Simple things were more than enough. My grandkids grew fond of her. The first time I took them to her apartment, Martha received them with homemade cookies. The kids looked at her as if she were an extra grandmother. From that day they started calling her Grandma Martha, and her face lit up. Seeing that moved me more than I can explain. Carrie, my daughter, also hugged her with affection the first time they saw each other after several visits. "Thanks for loving my dad like that," she said. And Martha, without boasting, just replied, "It is easy to love your dad, he is good." Hearing that broke me a little inside, but in a nice way. I needed someone to recognize me, not as a betrayed man, but as someone who still had worth. However, not everything was simple. Sometimes at night I woke up sweating. I heard Lucy's moans again, saw myself hitting the door, saw Dave hiding under the bed. It was as if my mind insisted on tormenting me. I sat on the edge of the bed and breathed deep until my chest stopped hurting. But little by little those nightmares diminished. Not because I had forgotten, but because Martha was there. She told me, "Ray, those wounds do not disappear, but they become more bearable when someone accompanies you." And it was true. One day, after almost a year of knowing each other, she proposed something that took me by surprise. "Ray, what would you think if we looked for a place for the two of us?" She did not say it with pressure. She said it like someone talking about the weather, soft with patience. I stayed silent. I looked at her calm eyes. I looked at her hands, those hands that had given me calm when I needed it most. And I told her, "I think it is time, but I want to do it with you slowly, without rush." She smiled. That smile that looked like morning light. We started looking for an apartment that was for both of us, a place that had no memories of mine or hers, something new, something clean. We found a small one, but very pretty, with big windows and a roof perfect for putting plants. And so, without realizing it, I started a new life. A life I never thought I would have after so much pain. Moving in together was not something we did overnight. Martha and I wanted to do it right, without repeating errors of the past, without rushing out of emotion, without hidden fears. We spent several weeks visiting apartments, looking at prices, sizes, light, location. I, who had always been kind of desperate for those things, surprised myself being patient. I did not want just any place. I wanted a home, one that did not bring ghosts, one that did not smell of betrayal or broken memories. Finally, we found a perfect apartment for us. It was in a quiet building with wide stairs and a roof full of light. It had a small but cozy living room, 2 simple bedrooms, and a kitchen where Martha was already imagining new recipes. The day we signed the contract, she took my hand and said, "This will be our beginning, Ray." I felt a lump in my throat. I never thought that at 67 years old I would be starting from zero again. But there I was with a woman who treated me with respect and true affection. A woman who had no rush, who hid nothing, who used no excuses or games. It was like breathing clean air after years of drowning without realizing it. Moving day was special. We did not have many things, but every object we carried meant something. I brought my old books, my favorite thermos, some photos of my children when they were small, and the watch I inherited from my father. Martha brought her pots, her spice jars, some simple paintings, and a box full of threads and needles, because she liked to sew in the afternoons. Between the two of us, we arranged everything calmly. I assembled a shelf, Martha hung curtains, and together we chose where each plant would go. On the roof, we prepared our small vegetable garden. She planted basil, I planted cherry tomatoes. When we finished, we stood looking at the place as if it were a small achievement, a little piece of hope planted after so much darkness. The first night in our new home was quiet. We ate something simple, some sandwiches and coffee. We sat in the living room with boxes still unpacked and talked for a long time. We talked about the past, about the fear I still carried inside, about the doubts that still visited me at night. Martha listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Ray, I cannot erase what you lived, but I can accompany you so you do not carry it alone. Here I am, and here I will be." That phrase disarmed me. It was not an empty promise. It was not a nice swear that later gets broken. It was a firm and quiet statement. The following days were a nice mix of routine and discovery. Martha and I learned to live together as a mature couple, without drama, without screaming, without games. She cooked and I washed the dishes. I watered the plants and she knitted while we watched television at night. Sometimes we went for a walk, sometimes we went to the market, sometimes we just stayed home listening to old music. My grandkids visited often. They loved the roof, the garden, and above all, Martha. Carrie told me it was nice to see me like this, calm, with a smile she said she had not seen on me for years. Matt also accompanied me from time to time, and he always found something to fix or improve in the apartment. But of course there were still difficult moments. Sometimes I woke up at dawn sweating, feeling again that scene of the locked door. Sometimes I heard in my head the moans, the blows on the door, Lucy's trembling voice lying shamelessly. I got up slowly so as not to wake Martha, and went to the living room to breathe in silence, hands trembling. One night she noticed and got up too. She found me sitting in the dark, looking at the floor. She approached without saying anything, sat next to me and took my hand. "Again?" she asked softly. I nodded, unable to speak. "You do not have to face it alone, Ray," she told me, resting her head on my shoulder. And so we stayed a good while without words, just letting the heart settle again. Little by little, those nights became less frequent. They did not disappear completely, but they no longer defeated me. They did not leave me lying down like before. Martha became my haven, my fixed point in the middle of internal storms. A detail I will never forget is that Martha never spoke ill of Lucy. She never told me I told you so, nor what a bad woman, nor you deserve something better. She never fed my resentment. Every time I mentioned the past, she listened with respect and then reminded me of one thing. "Ray, the past is not there anymore. You do not live there anymore." And she was right. For the first time in a long time, I felt my life was going forward. One day, while we were drinking coffee on the roof, Martha said, "Do you realize? We are building something beautiful." I looked at her. And yes, I realized. And that for a man who believed his story had ended was more than a gift. It was a miracle. A silent one. As months passed, my life with Martha took a rhythm I never imagined having again. It was not a perfect life nor a movie life, but a quiet, honest life, without fake shocks or hidden lies. I no longer lived with that constant fear that followed me like a shadow after what happened with Lucy. Every day next to Martha was like putting a new brick on a wall that was previously collapsed. Sometimes we got up early just to see the sunrise from the roof. I made pot coffee, and she heated bread. We sat in silence, watching how the city was waking up. Those moments, although they seemed simple, became my favorites. They made me feel there was still good life to enjoy even at my age. My children stopped by to visit when they could. Carrie loved seeing how Martha and I kept our little garden alive. One day she put the kids to help water the plants, and they did it so badly they ended up soaked. Martha, instead of getting angry, laughed with that laugh that made her eyes shine. Matt also went from time to time and always found something to improve. A loose screw, a squeaky chair, a shelf put wrong. Seeing him move through our house with freedom made me feel accompanied, as if the family had healed a little too. But of course life is not a straight line. One day while I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables, my cell phone vibrated. Seeing the screen, my heart stopped. It was a message from Lucy, even though I had blocked her. It was another number. It did not say much. "Ray, I just want to know if you are okay." I stood looking at the screen for several seconds, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and tiredness. Then I deleted the message without answering. Martha entered the kitchen right at that moment and saw me with a serious face. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. "Yes, just a memory from the past," I replied. She did not insist. She did not ask for explanations or question anything. She just gave me a kiss on the cheek and continued preparing the food. That way of respecting my spaces was something I had never had before, and learned to value as a treasure. Over time, I found out from Carrie that Lucy was still living alone in a modest apartment in the city. No one knew much about her, she had no close friends, and almost did not speak to neighbors. Carrie told me one day, "Dad, I do not know if you are interested to know, but Mom is not well. She is very lonely." I listened but did not answer. It was not coldness. It was clarity. Lucy made her decisions, and I could no longer carry consequences that did not belong to me. Martha never opined on that, but every time she saw the news stirred something in me, she took my hand discreetly. That silent gesture reminded me my place was no longer in the past. There was a special day that marked a before and after in how I saw my new life. We were on the roof checking our plants when Martha said, "Ray, you realize you no longer talk about what happened with pain, but with distance." I stayed thinking. It was true. I no longer felt that huge knot in my chest every time I remembered the betrayal. I no longer cried thinking about the lost years. Yes, it hurt because scars always hurt a little when touched, but the pain no longer controlled me, no longer stole my sleep or breath. I smiled at her and said, "I think you started curing me without me noticing." She shook her head with that humility of hers. "No, Ray, you healed yourself. I just walked with you." Those words touched me deep because I understood Martha had not arrived to replace anything nor to compete with a broken past. She had arrived to accompany me forward. One day, while we were walking hand in hand through the park, Martha told me something I will never forget. Ray, no matter our age, we can always start over. Always. That phrase kept going around all day, and while thinking about it, I realized I no longer felt like a destroyed man, but like someone who had survived, learned, and was reborn. Sometimes life snatches something so strong from us we believe there is no turning back. But life also has curious ways of giving us second chances. The routine with Martha was already so natural that sometimes I was surprised how happy I felt doing simple things. For example, watching old shows on TV, cooking together, walking through the Sunday market, listening to music while she sewed, and I read the newspaper. One night while watching an old movie and Martha fell asleep leaning on my shoulder, I stayed looking at her in silence. And it was there in that instant so simple that I realized something very deep. I had not only found company, I had found peace. And peace after having gone through hell is worth more than anything else. Today already, with 69 years on me, I can say my life took a course I never imagined. If someone had told me that Friday I discovered the betrayal, that 2 years later I would be living in peace in a quiet apartment, accompanied by a good and honest woman, I would not have believed it. At that moment I thought everything had ended, that there was nothing left for me after the pain I carried. But life, although sometimes it breaks us, also knows how to rebuild us when we least expect it. With Martha, I continue living in that little apartment we transformed together. Every corner has a little piece of our hands. The kitchen always smells of coffee and homemade food. The living room has photos of my children, my grandkids, and one we took Martha and I in the park. Our roof is our pride. The plants grow strong and green as if they too had found a new beginning. Every morning we go up together to see how the garden is doing and water the plants while the sun starts to appear behind the buildings. My children are happy to see me like this. Carrie usually visits us on weekends with her kids, and the children go straight to the roof to see what new fruits came out. Matt also stops by often and always brings some little gift for the house, like a set of mugs or a new plant for Martha. Knowing they see me stable, calm, and accompanied is a huge blessing. I thought the betrayal was going to break my relationship with them too, but the opposite happened. They supported me, took care of me, gave me strength when I did not have a drop. From time to time, when I go downtown to see Carrie, I run into Lucy on the street. I no longer feel anger or sadness. I just see her as someone with whom I shared many years, but who took a different path. We greet each other with a slight nod and continue each on our way. I found out from my daughter that she lives alone, that she almost does not go out, that she was left without the company of neighbors because everyone knew what happened. But it is no longer my business. I do not wish her bad, but neither do I feel an obligation to carry her loneliness. Everyone lives with what they sowed. What remains clear to me is that betrayal does not kill the heart, although it wounds it strongly. What kills the heart is staying there wallowing in pain, without allowing time to do its work. It took me months to get up, and I had nights so dark I thought I would not see the light again. But here I am, alive, calm, at peace, and above all accompanied by a woman who did not arrive to replace anything but to build something completely new. Martha has a very special way of seeing life. Sometimes while we walk through the park, she tells me, "Ray, look at that tree. It lost all its leaves in winter, and look at it now." We are like that too, and I smile because I know she is right. I lost a lot, but I also gained things I never imagined. One of the things I appreciate most is having learned to value small joys. Before I lived in a rush, always thinking about work, about fulfilling, about not failing. Now I enjoy simple things I maybe did not even notice before. The smell of freshly baked bread, the first cup of coffee of the day, the song of a bird at the window, a long conversation at night without having to watch anything or distrust. That for me is worth more than any luxury. I also learned to have patience with myself. Scars never disappear completely. Sometimes I still have memories that hurt, but they no longer throw me to the ground. They are like signs that I survived. And I also learned that loving after having been betrayed is not impossible. It only needs time, calm, and a person who knows how to walk with you without rushing you. Martha always tells me, "Ray, what we live now is not youth. It is maturity. And maturity also knows how to love beautifully." And she is right. Today, I know true love makes no noise, does not demand, does not scream, does not hide. True love shows in small gestures, in trust in the peace a person brings to your life. And if Martha has given me something, it is peace. If you are listening to this story, and are going through a betrayal, I want to tell you something from my old man's heart. It is not the end. Even if you feel life broke, even if it hurts to breathe, even if you believe you will not be able to continue, yes, you can. With time, with faith in what comes, and with correct people by your side, pain transforms. It does not disappear completely, but it becomes more bearable. It is never too late to get up, never too late to start again. I thought my life had ended when I found that locked door and that man hiding under my bed. But here I am 2 years later with a new story, a new house, a new peace, and a heart that returned to beat without fear. Thank you for listening to this tale. Thank you for accompanying this old man and his story. If it reached your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel William's Revenge Stories. Tell me where you are listening from and what time it is there. And remember, with affection I tell you, life does not end with a betrayal, sometimes it just begins.